Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our latest and greatest Twitter for Journalists little webinar that we're doing with the Walkley Foundation. Thank you again for joining us. And I want to first begin today by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we're virtually meeting today and pay my respects to their elders past and present. I also want to extend that respect to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander peoples that are also joining us on this call. First and foremost, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Hinesley. I'm the Director of Public Policy for Australia and New Zealand, and will be one of the 4 speakers that you get to hear from today, all from Twitter. And we're all looking forward to not only taking you through some of the new product and policy features that we've had introduced more recently, but also to talk through some of the great updates that we also have coming up in the next few months. So before we kind of get started, we'll go through a few little housekeeping updates, and I'll take you through the agenda, and then we'll get going, which is wonderful and very, very exciting. So first off, housekeeping. We always tell you to make sure you keep your microphone on mute. I think that's going to be the running joke after 2020 and 2021 forever. But also, one of the great things about these trainings that we're doing with the Walkleys is that we do have time for questions at the end. So you can drop them into the chat, and myself or one of my amazing colleagues will be able to answer them. Also, today's session is going to be recorded for those of you that might have to drop off a bit early, or if you have some folks that weren't able to join, we will endeavor to make sure that this is made available a little bit later so they don't miss out on any of the information that we do have. If we go to the next slide, we'll just go through the agenda real quick. So as I noted, we have amazing 4 speakers. You're going to get to hear from myself, from our head of comms, Ben, our head of curation, Neil, and our lead for the Global Content Partnerships team, Rose. All of these folks are going to be able to talk to you a little bit about what's happening in Twitter, but also what's happening around the world as we continue to look at making developments and participating in the public conversation. One of the quick things too is as we kind of go through this, as I said, you can just put any of the questions in the chat. Here it's just down at the bottom lower right hand sort of corner, right in the middle, depending on what kind of version of Zoom you have, and we will be answering those at the end. So just to give you a quick kind of introduction, for those of you that might be a little bit more new to Twitter, of course, we are a global platform operating, of course, here in Australia, but also around the world. One of the key kind of features of Twitter is that we are fast. We're always a place where there's breaking news and trying to make all that information available to everyone around the world instantaneously. We're also a public platform, which makes us a little bit different from some other companies. We're a place where anyone can sign up, and it is a public conversation where everyone's able to participate and have their voices heard. And then, of course, we're a place where people get to connect. Because we're live and we're public, we really are that kind of conversational layer of the internet that's really driving discussion. So anyways, we'll go through some of these kind of new product improvements. I'll go through some of the policy developments, and we'll talk a little bit about the massive surge in growth that we've been seeing on the platform as people are coming together as a global audience. So with that background and context in mind, I'm now going to hand over to my esteemed colleague, Rose, to take you through some of the new product features in Twitter's audience. Over to you, Rose.
Thanks so much, Cara. And hello, everybody. It's such a privilege to be here, so thanks for having me. So Twitter is what's happening, and it's what people are talking about right now. We're the undisputed home for breaking news and real-time public conversation for sports, music, entertainment, technology, gaming, business, cultural shifts, you name it. But it's Twitter's superpower has always been its active, leaned-in audience. And this audience has 3 key strengths: growth, influence, and community. So let's start with growth. User growth is a strong indicator of a platform's relevance in the broader media landscape. We've seen over the last 3 years is that more and more people are turning to Twitter more than ever. Yesterday, we released our Q3 earnings, and we now have 211 million monetizable daily active users, which is a 13% year-on-year increase. Our ambition is to get to 315 million people coming to Twitter every single day by 2023. How are we going to do that? Product updates, improvements to the platform, launching new services, and of course, growth marketing. So I'll be going through a few of those features in a second. We know our growth audience is important to you, but it's actually their behaviors that really set them apart. While users on other platforms have a look at me attitude, people on Twitter are more likely to say, have a look at this, have a listen to this. They come to Twitter for information and to connect to the world around them. They make and shape the movements, memes, and conversations that drive news and culture. For example, we tracked press article mentions for major events and occasions that are important to our audiences, and we found that Twitter drives disproportionately higher media coverage than our competitor platforms. From family occasions like Christmas to major sporting and entertainment events, this influence has powerful implications for publishers like yourselves. And at the core of our growing audience are passionate communities of people with common interests. And we're making it easier for them to discover, consume, and contribute around these interests. From television Twitter to technology Twitter to music Twitter, these are just some of the communities that are engaging in real-time conversation on the platform as we speak. So now to some of our newest features. To improve the Twitter user experience and grow our audience, we've focused our innovation in 3 key areas: topics and interests, conversation, and trust and health. I'll speak to the first 2 and I'll allow Kara to touch on trust and health a little later. In the past, it's been way too difficult for people to find and follow what they care about on Twitter. It's been the most amount of feedback we've ever had is people new coming to Twitter. There's so much content, but where is the stuff they care about? So we've invested heavily in content relevancy, making it easier to discover, follow, and engage with what you're interested in. These 3 new features, topics, communities, and enhanced lists, are providing more relevant content experiences by matching needs, interests, and passions through improved machine learning. We introduced topics to make it easier to find and follow the most interesting conversations happening on Twitter. And so we're scaling this product to reflect the full diversity of consumer interests across our global markets and verticals. Currently, we have over 7,300 topics globally across 9 different languages, and this will continue to grow. In Q1 this year, we helped people connect with their interests on profile pages. We started showcasing noteworthy accounts on topics landing pages, and we continued improving the relevance of topic and tweet recommendations. As a result of this, we've seen a 20% increase in people since Q1 using topics, and we've seen a 35% increase in topic follows that then lead to engagement. So what this shows, what this indicates, is that people are finding valuable conversations through the use of topics. And here's a little sizzle. As we better help people find the topics they're most interested in, we also want to make it easier for them to have conversations with others who share those interests. We're excited to be introducing a small pilot of communities later this year, which are dedicated places on Twitter where people can join conversations with like-minded people to talk, share ideas, and support each other around those interests. giving Twitter cat lovers, parents with twins, social justice activists, and more a place to find each other and grow their ranks. 2 features will be introduced with the community's product, just back on the previous slide. Narrowcasting, allowing people to choose who they speak with, and community moderation. This is where members of a community can appoint other people to help keep conversations safe, relevant, and obviously fun. As people discover new topics and communities that they care about, we're also giving them more control over what they see. So we've bolstered our lists feature. This allows people to more easily create, customize, and pin the types of conversations they care about to the top of their timeline. For example, if you've recently discovered a new topic or community that you love and you're really passionate about, you can curate your timeline using lists so that you see more of them. The usage of lists has doubled in the last year. Okay, so in order for Twitter to truly serve a global conversation, we need to expand access to everyone. This means offering people more ways they can participate in conversation beyond 280 characters. Our conversation strategy has 2 parts: creating new use cases for conversation on the service, such as audio content with Twitter Spaces, and rethinking the incentives on the platform. Hopefully by now you've seen Twitter Spaces, joined a space, potentially even hosted a space. If you have, let us know, that's awesome. But this is where live audio conversations are happening on Twitter. There's a space for any and every topic of conversation, from small to intimate conversations to millions of listeners, joining. And this is across sport, music, gaming, trending topics, and more. As we develop new ways for people to discover, create, and participate in meaningful conversation, we're also introducing ways to help them customize their experience. So a few months ago, we began testing our first ever subscription offering called Twitter Blue, and this is exclusively available only in Canada and Australia. So Twitter Blue is a new way for people to manage their content and customize their experience through features such as bookmark folders, the undo tweet functionality, which gets a lot of popularity, and reader mode. And as rolled out today, also a feature called Labs, which will give you early access to new features such as these. So as we learn more about the new offering, we hope to determine what will make the experience better for you, better for users. So if you are using Twitter Blue currently, we would love to hear from you. What's working, what's useful, what's not, what would you like to see? And we'll be happy to take that all on board. That's the last sizzle reel, I promise. So we also have new ways for people to support creators on Twitter and new tools to help publishers grow their audiences. Super follows gives extra levels of access and content from your favorite people on Twitter. And tips lets creators earn money directly from their biggest supporters. So both of these are only in the US right now being tested out. So once we test them, get the feedback, make all the changes, we'll then probably see these being rolled out to Australia. And last little feature from me is with our recent acquisition of Review. This is a service that makes it easy to start and publish editorial newsletters. Creators and publishers can now grow their readership where their followers already are at a faster and at a larger scale. By enabling people to bring their best content to the platform, connecting captive audiences with the most relevant content, and empowering everyone to start or participate in conversations about what they're discovering, we're making Twitter a more rewarding place for people and for publishers. So that's all from me. Lots and lots of new stuff there. Some of it's available right now. Some of it will be available in the future. But please put all of your questions into the comments and I will endeavour to get back to each and every one of them either today or via email. There'll be an email address at the very end of the prezzo. Please feel free to send your questions there as well. So now over to Neil.
Thank you so much, Rose. I don't have any sizzle reels, so I am feeling a little bit naked right now. So this is my third month at Twitter, and look, I'm really excited to talk to you guys about curation and the work that we do. So firstly, curation create context from content. So we are the Explore tab, although our work appears in a variety of different places on Twitter. Up until 2020, the trending page was left to kind of speak for itself. Now curation adds a layer of context to those trends. So as you can see in our team mission there, we discover, contextualize, and highlight content, making it easier for you to understand what's happening. We also work on misinformation. That includes synthetic and manipulated media. Kara will speak to that very important work in a moment. We are a multilingual team. We are a global team. And in my team alone, there are 7 different languages that are spoken. Like the news cycle itself, it's a 24/7 operation here. We have teams in Atlanta, Boston, London, Mexico City, New York City, San Francisco. I am going to list them all. São Paulo, obviously, from that pronunciation, I'm not one of those people in my team that speaks multiple languages, so I do apologize for the Portuguese speakers there. We are also in Singapore, we are in Sydney, and we are in Tokyo. So what do we do? So this is the Explore tab, as I mentioned. You can find it by hitting that little magnifying glass on your Twitter app. That also is your search tab if you're looking for it. If you're on the web, just hit #explore, and that's basically where we live. If your phone is handy right now, or you have a tab open, check out Explore, and it is really the home of curation on Twitter. Explore is also the fastest way to get up to date on the latest news and conversations trending on Twitter right now. It is also the easiest way to see the work that the curation team does. But let's look at some of those different areas beyond curation, where we are taking this context directly to the user. So here are those specific areas or surfaces, as we call them at Twitter, on which our work appears. And this is the work that goes beyond that Explore tab. You can see that we're not waiting for people to find us, we're going where they are. So adding context to trends has been a really big change in the last little bit. It's a small label that tells you whether a celebrity has died or whether it's just another K-pop trend. We also have representative tweets, which is basically one tweet that tells the story. We can also send push notifications if you let us, and you'll be familiar with the notification tab, which is tailored to your interests. For me, the notification tab is basically all tech news and Highland coups, so it is highly tailored to specifically what you're looking for on Twitter. You can also find Curation in search and as a tweet in your timeline if you follow at Twitter Moments AU, and I definitely recommend you follow that account for the latest stuff from us. Now that I've shown you very quickly what Curation does, I want to explain a little bit more about how we work. So these are the areas of focus for my team. These are basically the ways that we work across Twitter. As you can see, Curation is changing. We were traditionally focused on production. So originally, sort of 6 years ago when Curation launched, we were called the Twitter Moments team. And that's basically what we did all day, every day. We're focused on creating Twitter moments. But now there is a change afoot, and we're now considered, I guess, content engineers across Twitter, where we're basically working across the company wherever content lives. So you've kind of seen how we do that real-time context and where that context lives. So let's dig into strategy and planning, and also talk about some of those cross-functional projects as well. So we cover all major events from elections to the Olympics to ensure that every moment is covered live on Twitter. We also cover major news events like COVID-19, a story that has gone much longer than I think any of us anticipated. What you're seeing on the screen right now is what the COVID page looked like just before 10 p.m. last night. So as you can see, you can find this in Explore tab, as I mentioned. But as you can see, there's a press conference up there from the Federal Health Minister, Greg Hunt, all of the latest tweets around that topic. So if you're logging on at any time of the day or night, you can basically find the latest on this news event and any other major event that's happening in the world right now. It's, for me, just a really quick and easy way to kind of read in on the news and conversations that are really shaping the world at any point in time. And it is my first port of call each morning, has been for a long time. I generally grab my phone before I get out of bed, which is a habit I need to kick. But it is a great way to kind of read in as you're getting started on the day, but also as you're moving throughout the day as well. So you've just heard from the wonderful Rose about the new features on Twitter like spaces and communities. These projects make up our cross-functional work. So these are the sorts of things that we're working on as content engineers across Twitter. So Curation works on these projects from the very ideation phase, so right from the start, and also in the weeks after launch, just to ensure that the best content is being surfaced. And basically the goal of that is to allow us to host the very best conversations we can. That's kind of like a turbo view of Curation. Really, really happy to take questions at the end as well. But that's basically it from me. I'd normally end here with an animated GIF of Tom Hanks waving, but I am quite new to Twitter, so I don't want to get into trouble. So I will pass along to Kara, and I'll see you guys at the end.
Thanks, Neil. Or as I should say, T. Hanks, as he's waving. We'll come back to Neil, don't worry, at the end when we do some more questions. But for now, I'm going to take you through the Twitter policy world a little bit and give you some updates, and also go through a couple of tips and tricks around how to kind of control your experience, and also use some of the features that we have around mute, blocking, and reporting. So with the next slide, I always like to start with this, because this shows that safety and that healthy conversations have been one of our top company priorities. And this is something coming from the top down. So this is a tweet from Jack Dorsey, who is our CEO and also one of the co-founders of Twitter. And this was a tweet that he sent out when he came back as CEO in 2016, and has ever since referred back to multiple times around how we're trying to ensure that as a top priority, we are serving the public conversation and we're serving our users with all of the different product and policy updates that we implement. One of the cool things about Twitter and that I really love and that's been kind of baked into all of our approaches is that the platform itself has really been developed alongside the people that use it. I'm not sure about those of you that are familiar with even like the hashtag, but that all started by an engineer that was using Twitter and said, hey, why don't we group conversations under the pound symbol is what it's called in the States, but the hashtag, and even tweet storms. I mean, all of this has come about from users on the platform. So major constituencies like yourselves, journalists, activists, media outlets, this is what you guys are the ones that really influence our approach and how we're trying to make sure that we're rising to the new challenges that we're facing, as well as continuing to, again, go back to that mission around serving the public conversation. So we're focused on trying to help people feel safe. Again, like Neil was talking about, surfacing that really quality information and also tackling issues like elections, disinformation, hateful conduct, you know, the types of areas and obstacles that we talk about on a daily basis, we're moving with a renewed sense of urgency and purpose and commitment towards those problems. And so I'll take you through some of our policy and enforcement options, which are again evolving continuously to make sure that we are addressing those emerging behaviors online. So if we go to the next slide, you'll see kind of a really top level overview of some of the key Twitter rules and policies that we have in place. The reason that I have it just kind of as an overview is because I want to make sure that this is reflective of the fact that we do view the Twitter rules as a living document. We're continuing to expand and update them, iterate on them constantly, as well as looking at different enforcement options to respond to those changing contours of online conversations. We truly believe that the unique voices and conversations of folks on the platform make Twitter Twitter. So we're also working on ways that we can look at having people participate in the policy development processes that we're implementing as we look at trying to better adapt these rules freely and safely. When we go to the next slide, there's a couple of just kind of key updates that we have from a policy and an enforcement perspective that have come through in kind of the latter half of this year. One of the key ones, I know I feel like we can't get through a call or a meeting yet without talking about COVID. It's still very much amongst us in terms of things that we have to deal with our lives, and you know, people are in different situations around the country. And so this is something that's still very much top of mind for us around tackling any sort of misinformation, not only around vaccines, but also up-to-date public health and service, like public service announcements, I guess it would be the best way to describe it. We're working very closely with both the federal and the state departments of health, and ensuring that we work with them on not only surfacing up credible information through things like search prompts or through a lot of the curation work that we have with COVID-19 dedicated event pages, like Neil showed you in one of his slides, but we're also working very much on that policy development process. So through prioritizing this kind of public consultation with partners, we engage in months of feedback and conversation with external experts, with our own teams. And with the COVID-19 misinformation policy, for instance, we've actually done 3 major iterations and changes on that since introducing it formally in March of 2020. So a lot of this work, again, has to stay updated as we, as scientists, as the world gets new information, but that's something that we're very committed to doing, and also engage very locally here in the Australian context to ensure that we're matching what's happening on the ground here. Another key thing is the world leaders policy. So, hey, here in Australia, we have this federal election that's coming up at least in the next 6 months or so. That's something that we're doing a lot of work on already to be ready whenever the Prime Minister does call that election. And one of the key things that we've been looking at since the 2020 election in the US is updating our world leaders policy. So we actually undertook a large public feedback consultation period. So anyone was able to go in onto our website and fill out forms, almost like, submitting a, written feedback questionnaire, or almost like the formal submission process we have here in Australia. And this was something that we've kind of collated, and we're going to be publishing a blog soon. I'm sure you'll all hear about it, about next steps and the ways that we're going to look to making sure that we're meeting those community expectations in that space. Another key thing, of course, verification. I don't think I ever truly realized how coveted the blue tick was until coming to work for Twitter. And then I think I get about at least 2 to 3 DMs a day from different people asking about getting verified. We have been working on the verification application process, reopening that to the public. It's been rolled out slowly. As Rose alluded to earlier, we will have an email address that we provide at the end of this. So if there are any journalists on here and you haven't gotten your blue tick, do not worry. You will be able to contact us and we'll be able to work with you on that process. The other quick thing is just some of the enforcement updates. So just to show, again, it's important to have the policies in place, but we also have to be able to enforce them and make sure that we're enforcing them consistently as a global company, and ensuring that those actions are transparent and available to people that want to know what's going on. So from the enforcement updates, like I've been touching on the COVID-19 policy, we've been showing the most recent reporting numbers in our biannual transparency report. So if you really want to get into some of this in the nitty-gritty with graphs and bar charts, we have transparency reports that are available every 6 months at transparency.twitter.com, and they'll have all this information there for you as well. But it just shows under the guidance that we have and the policies we have for COVID-19, we've challenged over 11.7 million accounts in just that last reporting period. And also the different pieces of content that we've taken down. One of the key things too is that as we've expanded out a lot of the reporting flows and options that people can report content to us, we've seen a decrease in spam reports, which is good. It's showing that we're getting better at tackling spam and kind of low quality content on the platform, as well as having more options for people to report information to us that's a little bit more aligned with what they're seeing. Another key thing too that we've been working on is ensuring that those low quality tweets or accounts are removed quite quickly. We're having systems that work at challenging accounts that we think might be inauthentic or might be spam, and then we're able to remove them sometimes, mostly before even their first tweet. But we also have seen that of the removed tweets we've also seen only 6,000 of those tweets had over 1,000 impressions. So it's not something that's being put in front of a lot of people before it's being actioned, before it's being taken down. And this number is getting better as we continue to refine our systems. So if we move on to the next slide, I'll start taking you through some of the functionality that we have built into the product that will help you control your own experience and be able to utilize a number of features as you kind of become a Twitter expert, hopefully through the training. One of the quick things that I always kind of start with is muting. I'm sure most of you are familiar with this, as this has become pretty standard across many platforms and across the industry. But this just lets you remove an account's tweets from your timeline without having to unfollow them or without blocking them. I have to, true confession time, actually, when my dad first joined Twitter, bless his heart, he really got into plant Twitter, which is a big community. But I have to say, one night I was trying to watch Game of Thrones, and he was tweeting about plants so much that he was basically every single notification I had on Twitter. So don't tell my dad, but I briefly muted him for one night after he first joined, just so that I could get through the Game of Thrones conversation that I wanted to follow instead of hearing more about the Latin names of various plants. it is something that can really allow you both to mute keywords, you can mute accounts, and again, doesn't impact the ability of the account to interact with you later, but it does just for a while quiet down that notification tab. So it can definitely help out in some of those situations. The next option that we do have is blocking. So this is a little bit more of a serious feature that's going to help you control how you interact with the accounts on Twitter, full stop. So it helps people restrict specific accounts from contacting them or seeing their tweets and following them. Some of the important things that you might want to think through whenever you're blocking an account is that you cannot follow the account once you block them, because they also cannot follow you. So it's a mutual inability to follow each other. Whenever you block them, they're not going to get a notification that you blocked them, but when they try to visit your account, they will see an interstitial, so like a little warning that just says you've been blocked. So it is something that only if they go try to find your account specifically would that kind of pop up. Another kind of key thing is that if you do block an account and they choose to report you, any of the tweets that directly mention them will be available for them to review. So you do want to kind of think through when you're blocking this, you know, if you need to unblock them or block them again, there's all of this stuff is kind of contained in a list within your settings. So you can always go back and change that at a later stage if you need to. And the other key thing that is important is that you need to be logged into your account. We had some questions previously about blocking and saying it wasn't working. And it turned out that the person was using a logged out version of Twitter. So they were on their desktop, but were not actually logged in. So in order to save those settings into your account, you do need to be logged in. The other quick topic that I wanted to go through, which is a little bit more in detail, is about reporting a tweet. And I'm sure you all know how to report. You can report an individual tweet. You can report an actual account. You can report a list as well. So there's a number of options. You can pretty much report anything that's on Twitter, to be quite honest. It's usually up in the top right-hand corner. You're going to see 3 little ellipses or 3 little dots, and that's going to unlock these drop-down menus that you're seeing on your screen right now. And whenever you do report a tweet, you can do it for all kinds of policy violations, some of the policies that we went through a few slides ago. So it can be stuff from abusive and harmful content, inappropriate ads. You can report the ads, you know, self-harm if you're worried about somebody on the platform, impersonation, spam. There's all different types of options. And if you don't see an option to report in the app, you can always go to the help center. So help.twitter.com, and that help center has a bunch of online forms. So if you're not finding what you need in the app itself, I do encourage you to go to the help center, because there's about, you know, 20 or so different reporting forms that will help you guide you through that kind of flow, so that you can make sure that the content that you're worried about or the person that you're worried about, that report is getting filed correctly. One of the other cool options too that we introduced a few years ago and has definitely seen an uptick in people using is bystander reporting. So you can also report violations on behalf of another person directly to us. And it doesn't just have to be about something regarding yourself. We've seen this be really helpful sometimes in alerting us to something that might be happening, or again, someone that might be at risk. This type of information can be really invaluable. So I do encourage you to take advantage of the bystander reporting options if you think someone could use a little bit of help on the platform. The other quick thing that I wanted to flag, which is unique to Australia, if we just go back one more, I just wanted to let you know that we do have, we've been trialing a new option to report misleading information. It's only right now available in South Korea, US, and Australia. This is something that we're currently testing. It's still in the beta phase, but basically if you see a tweet that you think has potentially misleading information, you can report the tweet just like you would here and select the option it's misleading. And then we'll kind of take you through additional information that you can fill out. But this has been really, really helpful, very successful. It's something that we've been working on as a company, and also here in Australia, we are signatories to the Australian Disinformation and Misinformation Code, and this type of reporting flow has proven to be extremely helpful in helping us identify information that might be violative of our policies. So I just wanted to flag that for this group here, since that is a beta test that's unique to Australia. All right, now we can go to the next one. Thanks. So with this slide, it was just also to let you know a little bit about some of the features that we have for notifications. So as you know, you have a notifications timeline. It's a quick way to see how other people on Twitter are interacting with you. And you can filter your notifications if you want to control some of the options. There's kind of three major options with the filter notifications. There's the quality filter. There's the mute notifications for words or phrases, and then there's also advanced filters. And so all of these are available in your privacy settings under your account. And this, again, you can kind of see here with the advanced filter photo. You can see there's a lot of different options about if you want to have notifications from people that have a new account, or who you don't follow. It can get very granular, but it gives you lots of different options to just ensure that you're able to make those adjustments and really have the control over what's being notified and what's popping through to your screen whenever you open the app, or if you have the settings available on your home screen. If we go to the next one, this is also something that I regularly utilize and think it's worth sharing. So I don't know about you folks, but I, of course, have used Twitter for ages before I even came to work at the company. And I used it a lot to communicate with folks that sometimes I didn't always know before, or, they worked in, kind of similar circles or in different sectors. And I regularly use my direct messages, my DMs all the time. And I have open direct messages. I have open DMs. So if anyone wants to DM me, feel free. But one of the key things that has been really great is the secondary inbox that we have, which basically allows any messages that come to your DMs from people you don't follow will appear as requests in the messages tab. So you'll see in the upper right-hand corner, it's kind of highlighted in blue, requests. And anytime that somebody sends you a DM that you don't follow or you haven't interacted with them, it goes straight to this kind of secondary inbox. And this has really been very helpful because whenever you are trying to decide if you want to enter into a conversation with this person via DM, you'll be asked to either accept or delete the or you can report the message as well, but you usually get asked if you're going to delete or accept the message. Accepting the message allows you to engage the person like you would anyone else via DM, and it moves the message automatically into your regular DM inbox. However, if you delete the message, it will delete it completely from your inbox, but it doesn't prevent the account from sending you messages in the future. So if you have a message come through from someone you don't want to talk to, or it's spam, you're able to report it and block that account. So it then all gets removed, and then that person can't message you again. So it still has a lot of safety features built in, but it again gives you a lot more options to kind of decide how you want to interact with this DM that's come through. So it's also really helped us see those conversations that result in a block go down 20%. Okay, so we'll go to the next one. The next one is a new feature that we've come up with called hidden replies, or hiding your replies. So if you post a tweet and you decide that you see a reply that isn't very helpful, it might not be rising to the threshold of abuse or harassment. You might not want to report it, for violating our policies, but you don't think that it's, again, maybe a very productive conversation starter. Sometimes we refer to them as the reply guys. If you have somebody that just kind of comes in and is kind of sideswiping the conversation, you can hide the replies just by tapping again on the little hide reply option. And when you tap on that, it sends the reply down into the little interstitials down at the bottom of some tweets you might see that say, these replies may be lower quality. You can click through if you'd like. whenever you do that, it does still allow that transparency. But it helps keep the conversation streamlined and gives people a bit more control over your experience. One of the other great options that we have after this is also called conversation settings. So this is something that we introduced actually almost a year ago, and it lets people choose who can reply to their tweets and join the discussion. So as an author of your tweet, you get to have the say over who can comment to help keep the conversation relevant and avoid potentially forking that conversation into a place that you don't want to go. So it still allows you to have that kind of quote unquote private conversation, but in public, if that makes sense. So if we go to the next slide, you'll see kind of how those conversation signals work. So you get to choose the option about who is going to reply to your conversation at the beginning before you hit tweet. So it can be everyone for every person that follows you, or people that you @mention, or no one. Depending on if you just want to have like a standalone statement with no replies, you get to choose. And this gives, again, a wide variety of folks being able to view what's being talked about, but again, streamlining that conversation as you see fit. So since we've introduced this, actually, we've had a wide variety of partners, media outlets, and even advertisers really adopt this feature. And in the initial 3.5, 4-month period that we saw this, over 70% actually of advertisers use conversational settings on more than one tweet. So we're really seeing a really strong uptick in this feature, and people are utilizing it to great success for driving kind of focused conversations on the platform. Don't worry, we're almost to the end. One of the quick things I wanted to flag is two-factor authentication. I'm sure that most of you are very familiar with this. It is a feature that we do recommend for journalists to turn on, or if you do have, if you run a media outlet or organizational account, it really is going to give you the most secure experience on Twitter. So we've actually recently updated this process so that you can securely authenticate your account with either a phone number, an authenticator app, or a physical security key. So there's now a lot more options in addition to it used to just be SMS. Now you have a wide variety of options to authenticate your account with a secondary login method. So this is all under your security section of your account settings, and it's quite quick to kind of set up. Although I will just say, make sure that you're in a good mobile service area whenever you start to set this up. I've been caught out before whenever I was out in regional areas. So just make sure that you have a good mobile signal when you do that. Moving on, this is also another product that we're testing out. So I mentioned our misinformation reporting flow, and our misinformation policies are focused on COVID-19, synthetic and manipulated media, and civic integrity. So, issues around elections. One of the other things that we've been testing out is looking at ways that we can help high-profile users, especially in instances where they might be receiving a lot of inbound on Twitter. So a lot of notifications, a lot of replies, a lot of mentions. We know that especially for journalists, this is a time sometimes you might have a big story that's just hit. You might be covering a really high profile, sensitive current event. And these types of features are seen as kind of helping you in that very moment that's a bit temporal in nature. So we currently have this beta we're running. It's called safety mode. And when it's in use, you basically are able to turn it on, and it helps basically scan different replies and mentions and detects harmful language, and then will basically block those accounts for you, so that you're not having to go through, read it, and then block and do it really, one by one. It does then give you the list of all the blocked accounts, so you can go through and see if there's some, false positives that it made, or some issues that you'd want to correct, or if you just wanted to be aware of what was happening. But this is a mode that we're working on, and it's currently in beta testing. So if you are interested in participating in the beta test, the email at the end please send it through to us and we will get in touch with you. So last but not least, before I hand over to Ben, this is just our quick little checklist. So all of this stuff is helpful or is available on our help center at help.twitter.com. I won't go through it all with you in detail at the moment because I want to make sure we leave time for questions at the end. But these are all the different things that we would again recommend for journalists to have turned on, and different options that you have available in terms of increasing discoverability, being careful with certain content, and also being making sure that your account's always locked down and that you have all that safety and security features turned on. So with that in mind, I am now going to hand over to the head of Twitter comms for Australia, for Ben. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Kara. Hi, everyone. I'm Benjamin, Head of Communications for Australia and New Zealand. Thank you so much for spending this afternoon with us. I will be really quick, I promise. I've just got 2 slides, so don't worry. Basically, how can you work with us, the communications team? There are 4 things that I just want to kind of highlight. The first one is reach out to us if you want to find out exactly what's happening on the platform. As you would have heard from everyone, Twitter is a platform that serves the public conversation. So if you have anything that you want to find out to build onto your story, how many times has a particular tweet been retweeted? How many times have there been keywords that have been brought up? We can definitely pull that out for you. So during the Olympics, we pulled out different keywords and hashtags that were resonating among our users here on the platform. We have the new Bachelorette series going on. There were some quite interesting tweets that came about. So please do not hesitate to reach out to us, and we can definitely kind of identify some of those keywords and trends that are happening. And as you are working on your stories, we definitely have different subject matters experts or spokespeople that we can kind of put forward that would be able to add some color to your story. We've got teams based across the world that would be able to shed some light as to what's happening in the industry, what's happening in a particular area of focus that you're looking into. So please do not hesitate to reach out to us. And as I mentioned in the first point, we are more than happy to identify trending topics or tweets. I think COVID was something that we've been hearing across this particular presentation. That's something that we can kind of look into and kind of see what people are talking about when it comes to COVID. The similar situation when it comes to Olympics, we can look into this and kind of dive into what are the trends, how's the conversation evolving on the platform. And the last point that I want to bring up is basically how the business and the product and policies are being updated. As a platform, and as Kara mentioned, we are really fast moving. Conversations change really quickly, rapidly on the platform. And we are always continuously looking at ways to improve and update our products and policies. We just want to make sure that we are up to date to what's happening around us. As the conversation evolves, we try to make sure that our product is evolving and our product is up to date to what's happening. If you do have any queries or comments about the policies or updates, just reach out to us and we can work together on addressing some of those queries and comments. And with that, I kind of segue to the bottom right corner where there's an email address there. Just send your queries over to press@twitter.com. There will be someone from the communications team that will be more than helpful to reach out to you and kind of work with you to build your story or to address your concern. If we move on to the next slide, and I think this is something that has come out from everyone. Verification, it is a very important tool for a lot of people. I just want to flag up a couple of points as to how you should get verified, or some tips that you should look into when you are looking to get verified. The first thing is, please ensure that you are active on the platform. You must have a profile name and a profile image, so that has to be completed. You must have been logged on to the platform in the last 6 months. From a security perspective, the account must have a confirmed email address and a phone number. The account must not have had a 12-hour or 7-day lockout for violating any of the Twitter rules. So this is the same for any journalists, any academics, or even news organizations. For those who fall under the category of news organizations or journalists or academics, to kind of build on your credibility and to ensure that the process is much more seamless, also include URLs that would link to your bio and some of the work that you've done, link the URL to the news organization that you are working with. And this will help the team that's looking into the verification process make their job easier, and it kind of helps them to kind of build a case to verify you as a user on the platform.
It has been an absolute pleasure, and thank you so much for joining us. So big thanks, and we'll see you on Twitter.